Welcome to Sound and Vision, conversations with contemporary artists and musicians about the creative process. Here's the host of Sound and Vision, Brian Alfred.
Sound and Vision is sponsored by Golden Artist Colors. Golden's a company based in upstate New York and is committed to making the best artist materials for artists to make work with. I've been using Golden paints and mediums for 20 years, and I swear by it. An entire corner of my studio is filled with Golden Artist Colors, in jars and tubes, matte medium, you name it, it's in the studio. And you can get it in just about every art store, or you can go online at goldenpaints.com. You can become a supporter of Sound and Vision Podcast by visiting patreon.com/Sound and Vision Podcast. Kenichi Hoshine was born in Tokyo, Japan in 1977 and grew up in New Jersey. He studied in New York, where he attended the School of the Visual Arts. Kenichi has had shows at Part 2 Gallery in Los Angeles, Gallery Kant in Copenhagen, Unit London in the UK, Morton Fine Art in DC, amongst many others. He also just opened a solo show entitled The Magician and the Thief at Hollis Taggart Gallery in Chelsea, which is up through February 15th. He's been featured in Art Maze, New American Paintings, the LA Times, and Juxtapose, to just name a few. He's been a visiting instructor at Pratt Institute, and he stopped by for a chat at my studio just after the opening of his current solo show at Hollis Taggart. Here's our conversation. I'm sure it puts people to sleep.
No, not at all.
When I was in college, I was a jazz DJ.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I started in new music because all my friends were doing the indie rock, new music
stuff.
Yeah. And that was the cool place to be.
Sure, of course.
And I could tell it just didn't work. I was way too relaxed.
I was a DJ for I went to School of Visual Arts, but SVA had a radio station, and I was a DJ. Basically it's like an excuse to listen to your own music in a studio setting.
Just go in and play music.
But then a month after I started doing it, they told me that this wasn't even airing. The antenna had been shut off by the school at the beginning of the semester, and I was broadcasting to nothing.
To no one.
Well, there was a cafeteria 3 doors down from the studio, and there's a speaker there, and there was a live feed.
Well, that's nice.
That was it. But
it went somewhere.
But not too many people utilized that. The cafeteria. So there were probably 2 people, at a time, and the guy who works there just listening to it or something.
Right.
So, it's
well, I guess it's the best way to get your start with it.
Yeah, I guess. Like I said, it was a sorry excuse to just listen to music and just I don't know, waste an hour, I guess.
It's fun though.
Sure.
Picking out the stuff you want to pick out.
Yeah.
But they threw me to the jazz side.
Okay.
Which was more relaxed.
Got it.
But they had a great vinyl collection.
Okay. That makes sense.
I feel new music was all CDs at that point.
Yeah.
And jazz had vinyl.
Yeah.
Which it's fun, Vinyl's nice. And once in a while I would be the substitute for the university's National Public Radio affiliate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I did the student station stuff, but sometimes you get bumped up to the NPR.
That's big time.
Yeah.
In the majors.
And there's probably 100 people listen to it. But it felt
you're on the spot.
Their side was really professional. And I forget the guy's name, but the DJ was he had that voice. He's what am I doing here?
Casey Kasem.
Yeah,
nice.
It was pretty incredible. Okay. Were you a big music fan growing up?
I was primarily that indie, typical 90s indies rock, I guess. I one of the things I did was take a lot of photos during the shows. That was a thing that I used to do, and it's funny because not too long ago I uploaded a few of the photos I took of these shows, 90s indie shows, all film camera stuff.
Basements or
no, not that indie, but I guess I don't know if you know these venues there used to be one called Tramps in New York City. Yeah, Tramps.
Maxwell's.
Maxwell's, Brownies, all those places.
Oh, Brownies. Right.
the cooler.
I'll
So I
take
went
it at the
around
cooler.
taking photos, of all these bands, and like not too long ago, I uploaded a few, and I actually started getting response from like actual, these people like
Yeah.
online, because I was like tagging them and such, and so I got a member of Blonde Redhead
Oh, nice.
to like write back to me on Instagram, because I posted a photo, and this was early on when they were actually a 4-piece band.
Yeah.
There was another Japanese woman in it. Like bands like Archers of Loaf. Fugazi. I posted a photo of actually Ian MacKaye wrote
Really?
an email back to me about it. And
Wow,
it was
that's
like,
great.
it's wonderful. It's kind of a interesting past hobby, I guess, if you want to call it.
Were you into photography? Or was it just kind of like point and
I
shoot?
was, and I still am.
Yeah.
But back then, to be honest with you, I'm not even sure why I started shooting photos. I didn't have this like conscious sort of goal, I guess, to like document or anything like that. I was just kind of doing it for fun, and afterwards I would, get the film developed and look at it and just, kind of reminisce in a weird, cheesy way.
It's like a keepsake.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like a little more than a ticket stub or something. And it was purely for me. And
Yeah.
I didn't think I would ever, be taking these film strips or prints and like scanning them in and putting it on the internet. I mean, back then there was no internet,
Yeah, you didn't-
so,
no one knew
exactly.
about
So,
that.
it kind of started and ended with me, but, I realized, after a while, some of my friends were like, "Oh, you should scan them, post them, because like there's like a resurgence of these bands." And I did notice all these '90s indie bands coming back,
Yeah.
and
It's
doing
about
these tours with
it's
their
about that
albums.
time, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. So it was kind of. It was like a renaissance, if you will, of 90s indies rock. And, I used to teach at Pratt Institute, and oddly enough, a lot of my students also listened to that era of music,
Oh,
even
really?
if it was before their time, but, they would like really be interested in like 90s indie rock. And
Yeah.
it was, it's
Well, I guess at a certain point, if you like music, you get back to that
sure,
thing.
sure. Yeah.
Like you start off with Zeppelin,
Yeah, exactly.
then like maybe some New Order,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like, stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You just
exactly.
move through the genres.
Yeah. Like, 70s rock, and then new wave, and then,
But for like art school, for artists then, I mean, indie rock was kind of the genre of music.
It was like the default thing, and like if you didn't listen to it or know about it, you were the oddball.
Right.
I felt, yeah.
Yeah. And we, I like where I was, it was in College Town.
Mm-hmm.
There were just the basement shows. That
Okay,
was the
sure,
place
sure.
to go.
Yeah.
That was kind of your entertainment outside of just being in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Was
Yeah.
like going to see basement
Yeah.
shows, and then we would, because I was in Penn State, so I would drive to Pittsburgh or
Sure,
Philly.
sure,
And
sure.
if we really liked the bands, we would do the triple,
Got
like the
it,
New
got it.
York,
Yeah,
Philly. We'd
yeah.
kind of follow
Yeah,
them around.
Yeah. Yep.
Like those early
Yep.
days of like shoegazer stuff that we were so
Yeah,
into,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
a band from England comes over,
Mhm.
you would like follow them.
Yeah, it's
through
like
a
the
couple-
Beatles coming over.
Yeah, exactly. It was great. Well, growing up, did you play any music growing up?
I did, but you can put the play in quotes, because I quote unquote played guitar or play or try to play guitar even to this day. But yeah, like just stupid, bands where you kind of get together with friends and, just kind of noodle around,
Yeah.
things like that. Nothing serious.
What kind of guitar did you have?
I had a Fender Stratocaster, and then after that I had a Fender Music Master. It was an old one. I think it was like a 56. It was like a student model with a tan body with an anodized pickguard and everything.
Nice.
But yeah, I picked it up for super cheap, and like not too long ago I actually saw one on eBay, and they're going for like, I think like a couple grand now or something like that. Yeah.
Well, because those came back too. There's the new reissues of the music.
Oh,
Man.
okay. Oh, okay.
So you
That
can
probably
buy
makes
those
sense.
kind of cheap now,
Okay,
but
got
it's
it.
the reissue.
Yeah, got it. Oh, that probably makes sense.
That's kind of,
why.
there must be a parallel with a kind of music and then the reissue
Yeah.
of a guitar and what comes back in style.
Yeah.
Because like I have an old 57 Gretsch.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And they just, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was, they started reissuing it.
that exact. Okay.
So
Nice.
I would never see anyone with my guitar because it was like this kind of
Sure.
or like a seafoamish
Okay.
green,
But that's
teal.
beautiful. Yeah.
It was
yeah.
really nice,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
real weathered,
Yeah,
Yeah. And it just stood out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I would see these brand new versions
Got
of
it.
it. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
like
they
where
must
they
have
come
reissued
from.
this thing. But it's totally. I would play them in a store. It's a different feel. So
Yeah.
I'm sure yours had a really good kind of weathered feel.
Yeah, it was. It had a great neck and great feel. It was a shorter. It was like a student model that they considered back then. So it was like a shorter scale. But I'm a small guy, right?
Right.
And small hands and whatever. So it was perfect for me.
You kind of only know what you're playing at that point.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So
yeah, but it wasn't 3/4.
yeah, okay. I should correct myself. Yeah, it was short scale. I think that's what they called it. It was a full size body, but the scale was shorter. So, yeah.
So and you grew up in Jersey, right?
Yep, I grew up pretty much all over Bergen County. Yeah, so I born in Japan. Came to this country when I was 3. Initially grew up in Fort Lee, New Jersey.
Oh, Fort Lee.
And then moved to this town called Wyckoff. Spent pretty much the majority of my life there. Meaning, I graduated from high school, and then I went to School of Visual Arts. But then I returned back to Jersey after school. Lived in this town called Ridgewood for a little while, and also this town called Mahwah. So
That's
I've been kind of
crazy.
all over Bergen County,
So
northern Bergen County.
Can I take a guess? And
Yeah.
I don't mean this to be. If I'm off, I apologize.
No.
But did your dad come here for business?
Yes.
And then he stayed.
So what happened was, like every kind of I guess Japanese sort of, there's a wave of Japanese businessmen and families, like an influx in the 80s, because there was a bubble going on in Japan, and all these global corporations were sending workers kind of all over the world.
Right.
But then the bubble burst, and all the companies started, retrieving, if you will, all their employees back to Japan. But at that point, my father was he was in insurance, but he wasn't necessarily working for a Japanese company anymore. So he ended up staying, and naturally I ended up staying as well. So
my wife's father and family came when she was 6.
Oh, okay. Oh, your wife is Japanese.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And she grew up in Mahwah.
You're kidding.
No.
Nice. Small world.
That's why I was saying the 201 number thing.
Yeah, got it.
That's why.
Got it. Okay.
I was like, oh, is that
great.
them?
Got it. Small world.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Mitsuwa, I mean, you were close
Mitsuwa,
to Mitsuwa.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
I
you
did
have to be
the
close
whole stereotypical Japanese, upbringing. Yeah, I went to Japanese school every Saturday, up until I believe like 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily I'm able to still speak Japanese, and that culture and the whole the Japaneseness is still within me.
Yeah, definitely.
My family, they're all in Japan right now. I have 2 older sisters as well, and they're all over there. I'm the only one left.
Oh, so your parents, they went back.
Yeah, they went back eventually. They went back in like 2003 or something like that. Kind of as like a retirement thing and whatnot. So, but yeah, ever since, for me, I mean, I kind of knew I would never go back.
Right.
So.
Well, so how did the art thing happen?
The art thing happened. Yeah, I mean that's kind of early on. I sometimes tell this story half jokingly, but half truth. When I was growing up, when I was a little kid, I had, like I said, I had 2 older sisters, or have 2 older sisters, and they would get piano lessons. And in order for my mother to sort of shut me up and kind of, keep me at bay, so I don't disrupt the piano lessons, she would basically just sit me at a table with like, pencil and paper, and just, kind of keep me in my own world.
Art was your babysitter.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how it started, I think. And it's funny because I kind of wanted to learn piano myself, but I never got the opportunity. I don't know if it wasn't that I wasn't allowed, but I feel like I didn't express it enough that I wanted to. But I kind of did want to. I don't know whether it's like following in my sister's footsteps or whatever, but for me the whole visual art thing stuck. I was drawing all the time, and that kind of naturally grew and grew, kept me interested through, elementary school, middle school, high school, drew a lot. And eventually I was like, I think art is my thing.
Yeah. And were mom and dad like cool with that?
Mom, okay. Dad, no.
Yeah.
Dad was, still semi old school, kind of Asian, or maybe not even just Asian, but just like any parent, it's like anything in the arts is usually a gamble,
right?
And
worried about your well-being.
Exactly. And my father being, like this insurance broker background, as steady as you can be, and like, as
covering your bases.
Yeah, as like straight as can be, so. When I was applying for colleges, like, in my head, I wanted to, just kind of go to an art school.
Yeah.
But my father, insisted that I go to like a regular, right. university, major in something, whatever, quote unquote, regular and normal. So just to appease him, I did apply to like, quote unquote normal universities.
Yeah.
I think it was like NYU, BC, BU, places like that. But, at the same time, I also applied to kind of the art schools like RISD, SVA, Pratt. And, I eventually went to SVA, but there was a little bit of friction there, when I was applying and I got into these schools and trying to make the decision. It was kind of a stressful period,
right?
But I mean, I hope they're okay with it.
They're just worried about
No, I fully understand, because if I in hindsight, if I was in my father's like shoes, I would definitely be concerned, and I would probably vocalize it kind of like he did.
Right.
But, so it's completely understandable.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I wasn't necessarily like a rebellious kid whatsoever.
Right.
I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't, I don't party, I don't, I'm a rather boring guy. So, I think like that was one of the first sort of defiant moments in my life, if you can call it defiance, the fact that like I wanted to sort of go the art school route. So it might have taken him by, kind of surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't fall in. So,
but he must have been comforted by the fact that you weren't like, this kid who's like doing terrible in school. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was,
luckily,
luckily I wasn't that kid. I was a decent student. I wasn't like, I wasn't like straight A, 4.0 or anything like that. But, I was okay enough, and didn't get into real trouble, and so yeah, but I hope they're okay with how things turned out. That's kind of the hope with any artist, with their parents.
Yeah.
Not that I'm doing this for them or anything like that, but yeah. So
yeah, but you always think you want your parents to be
somewhat
sort of
proud,
like feeling good about what you've done, or at least that, if nothing else, that you feel happy and comfortable doing what you're doing. Which is like, I would think as a parent, you just want your kid to be happy, or at least doing something they want to be doing.
Sure, exactly. Though, ironically, I found out that later, and I think this was after I graduated art school. Like I heard from my mom that my father, I think when he was in high school, was like really interested in the arts, and like I think possibly painting as well. And I think like that was like a possible direction that he wanted to explore as well. And I found that out totally, after the fact. So yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting.
Well, that's cool. I mean, genetically, you got to get it from somewhere.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So maybe you're vicariously living out something that he was dreaming about in a way. That I'm sure was even more difficult at that point of like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to be an artist.
Yeah,
like, what?
Exactly. Yeah.
You sure about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know, but I totally understand.
So what were your visual like inspirations as a young kid? What were you looking at, or what was exciting?
Young kid, it's got to be comics and cartoons, or anime, Japanese stuff. I grew up mainly with Japanese, comics or manga.
Yeah.
And from there, I started discovering a lot of anime and movies. And then after that, I was eventually introduced to like American comics, the whole like Marvel, DC world. And what ended up happening was, one of the reasons I ended up choosing SVA as a school was because they're one of the few in the country that have cartooning as a major. Yeah. And I think they still do. I'm not positive.
Part of illustration?
Yeah, it was part of. So they called it illustration and cartooning. I think.
And they have animation too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of all inclusive.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't know if they still have it or not. I may be, it may be
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I hope they do.
I mean, it's more popular now than ever.
I know, that's true, right? Yeah, exactly. So I went there because I thought to myself that I wanted to become like a comic book artist or have something to do with comics. And, again, one of the reasons I chose SVA was because they were close to the Marvel and DC like headquarters or business offices. They were like just uptown a little bit. And I heard these stories where they would come in and pick out graduates that were talented to start working for them. So I was
farm
like,
system.
that's awesome. Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, like the AAA, and then so I went there, but oddly enough, at about sophomore year, I started getting interested in like just painting and fine arts. Even though I was in the illustration and cartooning program, I'd say by the time sophomore year ended, I was not into. It wasn't that I wasn't into it anymore, but like illustration and cartooning were kind of, it took a backseat. I was like mainly painting.
Seduced by the dark side.
Exactly.
And
I went over
the less employable side from a commercial standpoint.
Exactly.
Oh no.
Exactly. So I definitely seduced is a great word. And I started looking more and more at painters rather than illustrators. Back then, like, we were introduced to like old school illustrators like, Wyeth and Howard Pyle and Norman Rockwell, people like that.
The greatest hits.
Yeah, greatest hits. But then slowly my interest started morphing, and I was like started looking at it started with like Degas and John Singer Sargent, and then just kind of went down the line. You look at Picasso and Braque and then all the Fauvists and whatnot. You just kind of, it opened up a whole nother can of worms and started down this rabbit hole.
Well, there's like a freedom to it too, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And, it was great because there was such a variety in what I was looking at as well. Anything from super representational, straight up, like say landscapes and portraits to, once you start getting, into the World War I era, you start seeing painters like starting to break things apart and, like abstracting things. And it was just like, not that illustration and cartooning didn't have their, how should I say, selections or, the wide scope of styles and looks, but I felt it even more so with the I keep calling it fine art. I hate calling it fine art, but I'll call it painting.
I mean, illustrators just have to kind of sneak it in more subtly.
Yeah, exactly.
You ever see that old? Probably not. There's an old video. I think it's like 3 Disney artists.
Okay.
Their animation artists doing the paintings of the trees.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. Those guys could paint. Those like old school Disney animators, like they were classically trained.
Better than most, I think.
Exactly.
You could just tell they had the chops. That's the thing. If you're going to be one as an animator, because, I have a lot of students, you come across a lot of students who are like, I want to work for Disney or for, Pixar or something. You have got to be able to just not only be extremely talented and efficient, but almost like a shapeshifter.
Exactly.
You have to be able to do all these different styles.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we've all seen those people who have that talent.
Yeah. Yep.
And like I've seen that as like I could never do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That versatility of it's just like a gift.
Yeah. The couple of classmates of mine at SVA who ended up going into animation and ended up like thriving in it. They were like the cream of the crop kind of students. They drew well, painted
freak
well.
drawers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I know a lot of people were ambitious and wanted to like go to Disney and attend the Disney boot camp and do all these things. Or like Pixar. Pixar. I don't know if they existed back then, but there was a Blue Sky Studios up in Westchester. Yeah, they did like things like Ice Age. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. So, I had a couple friends, who one went to Pixar, one went to Blue Sky Studios, but so they were great. Like, they still are, but like, they were the, the really
the wizards.
talented kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, when you started, I guess you were just taking painting classes and that kind of,
Yeah, you
got into it.
Back then, it was kind of the classic, almost academic life painting and
Still
life
lives.
drawing.
And yeah.
Yes, like 6 or 7 hour studio classes where you just set up a model and
7 hours?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, sometimes we went longer because we were painting nerds and we would set up before the teacher even got there. We got permission from the school to like open the doors for us. So like, I think, like we had keys to the studio space and like we would, show up early. We even did like Saturday classes. That one was totally unmonitored. We got like funding for the model from the school, and they're okay to just use the studio space.
Did you have your own individual studios?
No, that's the thing.
Not
At SVA, we didn't especially because we were illustration kids,
right?
So I'm sure the fine art department kids had it, but like for us, like we were considered I don't know, probably like people that worked on desks and we didn't need much space or whatever, so you're
not like ripping off 7 foot
exactly, right, and making a mess or whatever. So back then I think like their idea for us was to kind of keep us in individual little classrooms with like a drafting table, and that's it. So
but you took to the painting classes?
I didn't go to like the fine art classes necessarily, but there were these painting classes, figurative painting classes that the illustration majors could take.
Right.
So those are the ones that I took.
From Life.
Yeah. From
Did they
Life.
actually have a model there for 7 hours?
Yep.
See, in New York, I feel like it's easier to find someone.
Yeah, it is. It
you
is.
have a bigger pool of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey, are you willing to sit here for 7 hours and be painted?
Yeah. But like,
I
mean, I graduated back in 99. So like I went from like 95 to 99. But, I mean, I think times have changed slightly, since then. But, it's funny because, one of the teachers that I had, he's old school illustrator, been around, great guy, been around forever. He was telling us how he was one of the first people to use Fabio as a model. I think he was like literally one of the first to use him in the United States as like a model because he used to do romance novel covers, illustrate them. So I think he used Fabio, and he was telling us that he also used Madonna, pop star Madonna as a figure model at SVA. Like I think this was back in the 80s, like, before she obviously made it big and like blew up. I guess she was like an art model.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so
she was always connected with she was arty.
Yeah, exactly.
You could see her being
exactly.
so
that. It was kind of an interesting.
Well, those
thing.
are cool stories to have in the back pocket for students.
Exactly.
Guess who used to be in here?
I know, Fabio and Madonna.
It's like a head scratcher. Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So when did you? I mean, so your did you convert, or were you illustration, or do you not have to declare?
I did illustrate after I graduated. I did illustrate. I did freelance illustrations. Not too much, but and I did have a website initially set up as marketing myself as an illustrator.
Yeah. How was that racket?
You know what? It was great, but at the same time, it was like a strange time because I feel like, print was very much still alive, but at the same time, you did sense that there was a shift coming. That there was
digital
something,
media.
Yeah, exactly. So so I was kind of at that cusp, and you knew that things were starting to peter out, and like, I was hearing like kind of through the grapevine that all these magazines were starting to pay people a lot less.
Yeah.
And it's ironically one of the few or oddly enough, one of the few industries where you used to get paid more, back like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago than now, which is strange. Like even with like inflation, you're being paid less.
Yeah.
And I felt like, there was going to be something happening soon that, wasn't necessarily going to be great for me or positive.
Right. It felt like Spotify over the horizon.
Exactly.
Coming to destroy your record sales.
Exactly. So, I started, at the same time, kind of parallel to doing some illustration, I was also painting, and I was just trying to, kind of kickstart my, sort of career with that.
What's your early work like? What are we talking?
Representational, oil paintings,
Mm-hmm.
and they were, kind of like simple in the sense that I usually concentrated on like a singular image, whether it was like a figure or, like an object or something. They didn't look like classic portraiture, if you will, or, still lives or anything like that. But I would use either photos that I took myself or, found at like antique stores or, just kind of like found object photos. And I would utilize them and manipulate them in whatever way I deemed fit. And then a little after that, I also started pouring wax onto some of my drawings and paintings, and this was, an idea that I got from my friend who was also at SVA. And, that lasted for several years.
Was it kind of like as like a varnishing?
Yeah, it was like a coating. So it wasn't like encaustic in the sense that I wasn't mixing pigment into wax.
You're just creating texture, like a texture layer.
Yeah, it was basically like an overlay of like just a coating, if you will, a varnish. So it made things like hazier and blurry, adding like a slight yellowish hue or tone
and some tactile.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly.
You come up to the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I did one summer in between, I think, my junior and senior year of undergrad where I was painting. I don't know why. I just took a left turn and I was painting these like little Versailles garden looking things.
Oh, really? Wow.
On masonite panels.
Okay.
But then once I would, it was like miniature landscapes.
Okay.
And then I would sometimes like do words floating on top. But then afterwards I would take polyurethane and just
coat it.
Nice. And it made it. It was like a varnish, you know, but it was so thick that it created this kind of...
Yeah, and there's something nice about it. It kind of like finalizes things. It's like a punctuation mark at the end of a sentence.
Definitely.
Yeah. So.
It's like framing a piece of artwork and then putting the glass on top.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, there it is underneath.
There it is. It's done. I get
but
it.
It ran its course?
Yeah, I noticed a lot of sort of copycats out there, which was interesting. I'm not saying that I was truly original. I'm far from it, and it wasn't anything like that revolutionary either. I mean, people use, they've been using beeswax forever. It's one of the oldest mediums out there. But when you start seeing people doing similar work to you, and kind of, not that it became like a joke onto its own or anything like that, but I felt like, it ran its course and it did its thing, and I was like, okay, just. Let it go to the to the masses, if you will. So
right, it's like if you're a band and you use a lot of whammy bar on the guitar, exactly. And then you start hearing other songs and other gigs. It's like everyone's playing that tremolo. You're like, maybe it's time to put it away.
It's like I was using the theremin first on stage, and then like you see like 20 bands doing it or something. Yeah, so.
John Spencer's Blue.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever see them do it?
I love them. Yep, I saw them. I used to see all the members around SVA when I was going.
Oh, really?
They would just walk around. I guess I don't know if they lived there or whatever, but yeah,
those were some crazy early gigs.
Yeah,
I know the theremin just threw that in there.
Yeah,
that's the first thing I think of.
They had the classic theremin though, the wood cased thing with the
and it was a show when they used it. It's pretty great. So what happened when you graduated? I mean, what year was it that you?
99. I graduated in 99.
Right.
So yeah, like I said, actually right after graduation, I did go back to New Jersey, and I did. I worked at a company that designed dinnerware.
Oh wow!
So I worked there for a year. It was in the newspaper.
Oh yeah,
local newspaper. There was an ad. I'm trying to remember what the ad said. It said something very simple like, either designer wanted or illustrator wanted with like drawing skills, and it didn't state anything beyond that, like what it was going to be used for or whatever. It just had like a phone number. And
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Those days.
Exactly.
Are you creative?
No internet, nothing. Yeah, exactly.
Call 917-55.
Exactly. So I called this number, and I went to this place and where they told me to go, and it was this company that made dinnerware. Plates, mugs.
Is this deep in Jersey, or is it close?
Close. It's Oakland, New Jersey. So I don't think technically Oakland is Bergen. I think it might be another county over, but I'm not positive.
I know where it is.
Okay,
though. Yeah.
So it was relatively close by because I was living in Mahwah then, and so I I applied for it. I think I showed them a portfolio of like, work I did in school, and it was completely different from what I needed to do. Like, I had a portfolio of like illustration work,
Right.
but I at the company I would be needing to draw like designs and patterns at times. I mean, I did draw, like I did have to do illustrations sometimes to illustrate. Like they made like Christmas ornaments
Right.
For the holidays at times. So
They were advertising that you'd have to do.
I'd have to illustrate, or they had a factory in China where they had to I would send them sketches to look at to manufacture the actual 3D pieces. So that company was a full-time gig, 9 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Were you living at home at that point?
Yeah, back at that time when I applied, I was living at home. Difficult, yeah. I mean,
but you had a gig, so
sure, yeah. And then
cool.
eventually, I did move out. I moved to an apartment in Ridgewood, and I was living there, and going to that job.
Home of Real Estate.
So,
do you know those bands?
What's that?
That band, Real Estate. Yeah. Were they playing back then?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because they are probably the most famous
thing to come out of
Ridgewood, right?
Probably.
Other than that breakfast place, that pancake place.
Yeah, pancake place. Yeah, the pancake house.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm surprised you know that. It's like toilet seat size pancakes.
You didn't know you were going to be talking about that when you came
No. I lived behind the movie theater, so like behind the pancake house.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
So you were actually doing like surface pattern design a little bit.
Yeah, it was like, if you take a look at like any typical plate or mug and you see like a design, whether it's like floral or whatever, anything, right?
Thing.
Yeah, it's like someone had to design that.
But analog,
yeah, back then, yeah.
How would you do it?
It was either acrylic. You know what? I might have used gouache, maybe.
And just did it on paper.
Yeah,
and they would
did it on watercolor
scan
paper.
that.
We would get Arches paper from Pearl Paint on
cool.
Route 17.
Things used to be done by
yeah, exactly. And like we would send it to China to like for them to manufacture. And the funny thing is, like at times what we had to do was one of my coworkers one time she drew or painted a drop shadow on the plate design just to make it look realistic, you know? And they actually painted the Chinese manufacturer painted the shadow into the plate,
design?
Into the design. So at that point we realized like we had to just give them a very like almost like vector-esque look, like clean without any distractions or whatever, because we noticed that like if we had left like an accidental pencil mark on the painting or whatever, like it would end up in the final like sample that they would send us. Impressive as hell. Yeah,
they
totally.
were particular.
Yeah, they would like follow it to a T. So like we had to be very literal with them.
Yeah,
we realized then.
That's cool. So how long did that last?
That was I believe like I want to say a year or maybe a little over a year. Yeah. I mean,
are you working at this point? Or are you just too tired from work to actually?
So I tried on the weekends, like
it's not easy.
like on Monday through Friday it was like I couldn't really think of it, but like on the weekends I would try and paint. But yeah, in a sense it was like a dark time for me as far as like doing my own work because it was very minimal.
It's funny. It's like, well, you're paying a bit or you're making some money. But it can be a little soul crushing.
Yeah, exactly. It's cushy, but and I'm able to pay rent, buy groceries, pay for car insurance, stuff like that. But beyond that, I wasn't getting any sort of like satisfaction.
Did you have that itch of being like, I gotta?
Oh, totally. Yeah,
I gotta do something, or I could just be here.
Yeah. So, like at that time, I met my current wife, Gian, and she at the time was living in Queens. And what happened was I ended my time with the company and I moved in with her in Queens. And I kind of like I had nothing lined up. It was totally just kind of blind, just blind leap of faith.
Figure something out.
Yeah, if you will. And I had money saved up a little bit because I was not doing anything in Ridgewood. I was like, I was just
you weren't hitting the club after work.
No, exactly. I was like walking to the park and like drinking coffee. That was my like fun thing to do.
Extravagant lifestyle.
Exactly. So I had some money saved up, and I eventually moved out to Astoria, Queens with my then girlfriend, and
this is what year are we talking?
So 2004 we met. Yeah, so like I think it was like fall of 2004. Yeah. I'm trying to get the timeline right, or my wife will correct me on this.
It's interesting to me because like my first apartment was in Queens. In
really? Okay. Yeah.
Living with a girlfriend at that time.
Oh, really?
Until I got my
paths
job.
Have crossed. Okay, yeah.
And then I got a job at Macy's doing windows, and
really?
I found that job because I looked in the paper.
Okay.
And like
great,
there was the whole thing of like, well, as an artist, when you move to the city, this is pre-internet.
Sure, of course.
So you're like, well, what can you do? It's like, well, window displays.
Yeah.
Warhol did it.
Yeah, definitely.
Jasper Johns did
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Why not me?
Yeah, exactly.
So we just looked in the paper and found it and got a job.
That's so great. Wow, that's awesome.
But yeah, so this was a couple years after.
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah, and then from there, like, it's just, I've been, just kind of like working as an artist, and trying to stay afloat, I guess. Yeah.
When did you first start showing the work?
I mean, right after school, I did have this like gallery show at this gallery space in New York. I don't think they're around anymore, but it was few and far between. Like, not only was I not producing enough, but like I don't think I was taking it seriously enough in the sense that like promoting myself enough or getting out there, because I was just busy working or whatever at the job. So in a way I did need to kind of really shift my focus and concentrate and try and do art full time as much as possible. It's kind of like a mental thing. As long as you can be in that mental space, I think your physical body will follow. And
but it's so important to be able to have that headspace.
Sure.
Which
at
that time I feel like we could do it a little easier because I wasn't making that much money, but my studio space wasn't. I lived where I worked. I lived with a bunch of other people.
Yep.
Now I don't. How?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, back then I was able to make ends meet easier. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, being in New York is ridiculous, as anyone listening would know and attest to. I think that. Luckily I was able to like string together, at that time I was also like doing a little bit of illustration work as well. And I was able to kind of string together, just some sales with, like commissions of paintings and stuff like that. And, and then eventually I started like slowly but surely like showing in galleries and getting that whole thing like kind of steamrolling. Yeah.
And was your work, I mean, obviously I know your recent work.
Yeah.
I didn't see your work. I wasn't familiar
with
it.
It was pretty different.
10 years ago or something.
Yeah, the older stuff. So the older stuff was like that wax stuff I was talking about, or like kind of like that. Yeah.
How did that change happen and what?
Well, the current work, it happened about 3 years ago, I'd say, roughly. It wasn't necessarily so abrupt, like, behind the,
on the night of November 2nd. I had a moment of clarity.
Yeah, exactly. Like a light came down from the heavens, and I wish it was like that, but it was one of those things where I mean, I get this every few years, and I'm sure a lot of artists, and you probably do as well, where you suddenly start feeling a little stagnant, or I don't know. I guess you come to a crossroads, so to speak, and you kind of want to take a different path, and that's sort of what happened. And it was a gradual shift. I started experimenting on my own with like certain colors and mark making, things like that. But I was never really showing it to anyone. And I mean, at that time, Instagram was still it existed, and it kind of still in the early stages, but. I was posting some of it, but not anything in depth. So on Instagram and social media, I think it came as more of an abrupt change. It probably seemed like I suffered a head injury or something, and people, thought like something happened to me, and all of a sudden I'm painting or drawing differently or whatever. I don't know, but it was a little more subtle than that. But yeah, it happened about, I'd say, 3 years ago.
Yeah,
and
what the new work like? What is the kind of interaction with abstraction and motion? And I mean, I see a lot in it, but I'd rather you before I go out on a limb and try to explain.
Yeah, like I have heard that the word abstraction used in it, and of course there abstracted elements in there, but I think it's sort of like a weird hybrid or like a middle ground that I'm trying to attain. Not necessarily representational, but at the same time, I'm not a Rothko, or like a or Bryce Martin or someone like that. So there are definitely concrete representational or recognizable things in there, but I'm trying to do a delicate balance where I don't want anything to be clearly defined, but at the same time not so far out there, whatever that may be, that you can't really latch onto anything. Yeah. So,
and where does that come from?
Where does that come from? I think it's just it's me in a sense. I know that sounds like a cop-out answer.
Not at all.
It is me in the sense that those are my interests. Like I like I said, growing up with illustration, comics, things like that, cartoons, I love that, still do. But at the same time, I love looking at like an Agnes Martin and just staring at it for like a long time, or I love de Kooning. I love things that don't necessarily make concrete sense in our minds. So I guess like I kind of like to call it a distillation of my persona with these paintings, where it's like like the colors that I surround myself with, the things that I see every day that interest me, the past artwork that I have seen that influenced me, things like that. It's just like put it all in a blender, mix it up, and there you go, kind of a thing. Which I mean, it's no different from any artist out there, I think.
Right.
So
that's cool. Now, have you had or have interest in showing back in Japan?
You know what? I would, but I don't get love in Asia. I don't know why. Or from Asia. I know this sounds not that I've necessarily tried to reach out to like especially Japanese galleries or whatever, but I don't know. I don't know whether they think I'm Americanized, or like since I am living in Brooklyn, they may not consider me Japanese. I don't write in Japanese on like Instagram. These days you get discovered on Instagram, right? So I guess like if I had been writing a lot of my descriptions in Japanese or something, they may reach out
like, oh, this,
oh, it's like, oh, he's Japanese.
There's a communication line.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but at the same time, of course I wouldn't mind, showing in Japan. I would love to, but Asia has been kind of like I haven't had much experience there.
But I mean, I speak through family experience. It's difficult, right? Because you float between. You know what I mean? Because culturally, growing up, that's such a huge part
it's like
of
I'm in a limbo, in a way.
But then, being American, that's not the reason you're making the work.
Yeah, exactly.
But it does have like a visual impact. Like just the way, like thinking of manga and the way that compositionally and movement and all that stuff. But it's not what the raison d'etre. But
exactly.
It's kind of this. That's I think what probably makes it really engaging and interesting.
I hope so. Thank you.
You know what I mean? But
sure,
then
of course,
at the same time, you don't want it to be. I'm sure. You don't want it to be framed as I'm the Japanese American artist making this work.
I hate being pigeonholed like that or labeled. I really don't like. This sounds idealistic, but I don't want to be associated with a particular, like race or nationality when it comes to my work, because I don't think it's overtly anything, in my opinion.
Well, I think that's what's really refreshing about your work. It's not, there's no signifiers.
Thank you.
It's not tapping into that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like after Murakami hit and everyone was like,
Oh,
all
sure.
the galleries here were like, we got to show someone who's doing something cartoony.
Yep.
And they could care less about Japanese culture.
Sure,
It was more of like, we just need to get that guy so we can sell that kind of work.
Exactly.
So you would only see that Japanese artists making that work.
Yeah.
Which has always seemed like a crime because there's so many Japanese artists who are making amazing work.
Sure.
And having friends in Japan who are making work that looks nothing like that.
Exactly.
But they couldn't get a sniff of showing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's nice when you see that work that is just
thank
about
you.
the work.
Yeah, I'm not throwing in any cutesy characters or
Right.
anything of that nature or something overtly anime inspired or anything like that.
Yeah, but to your point about like you're saying it's just me, it really does feel authentically like a voice that's your voice.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Because it doesn't. It doesn't really feel like anything else in a way.
That's one of the actually greatest compliments. I actually like the fact that it's like vague,
and that's hard to do.
See, I don't know if I'm consciously trying to hit that note every time I paint or anything like that. I'm really not. I'm not like avoiding things on purpose or like avoiding. If there's a point in a painting where I feel like I need to throw in like something that I remembered from like looking at, I don't know, like Dragon Ball or Gundam or any, whatever, right? I may just throw it in there, just because it needs to be in there or something like that.
Of course,
but,
because that's something you're familiar with.
Exactly. So, if it comes out of me, it comes out of me. But like, I am, trying to not make it so overt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the first time I showed in Japan, I knew it was like the press release about it, and it talked about how American my work was.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
And it was the first time I've ever read that, and I was like, holy crap, I guess it is really.
Oh, so you felt it that way then, like when you read it, like after you read it.
I guess it does feel very
like self-realization. Okay, interesting.
But when you're just making what you're interested in, it's kind of the culmination.
You got blinders on.
Yeah, I grew up watching Bugs Bunny. It's huge to me. You know what I mean? I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't make paintings today thinking I'm tapping into my Bugs Bunny culture.
Here's Chuck E. Jones. Yeah, exactly.
Right. It just kind of like unconsciously seeps in there, and it makes its way out.
That's the best way, I think. Yeah.
I think ideally,
it's like your filter,
unconscious sort of representation of what you're about in your world and stuff. So, why don't you talk a little bit about the show?
Yeah. So
it's up now.
It's at Hollis Taggart Gallery. It's at West 26th Street. It's up until February 15th. It's titled "The Magician and the Thief."
Cool name, by the way.
Thank you. I've been asked like, what does it mean? I like people to interpret it their own way. It's like they've asked me. It's like, am I the magician or the thief or both? It's like
that's projection.
It's like no, but like one of the nuggets that I did blurt out about it was the fact that I feel like sometimes like the magician or a magician could be a thief or vice versa, like a thief acting like a magician, and I kind of like that sort of interplay of characters, I guess, if you will. They're almost like interchangeable in a way, even though they have like two different goals in mind, and they're viewed by the public in completely different ways. One's like benevolent, one's malevolent, but at the same time, like I feel like deep down, like consciously and psychologically, they're both the same.
Yeah, and in a way, if you think about it, art is kind of like being a magician and a thief, because your sleight of handing, it is artifice. Your sleight of handing, and you're. I mean, I don't know if you're stealing from history, but
borrowing in quotes.
It's part of the language.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we steal words every day.
Exactly.
No matter what we write, in a sense, you're kind of taking from the past.
Yep.
And it seems like that work has a really nice, like your work has a really nice dialogue between kind of, it feels now, but there's also obviously a clear looking at history. And the way paintings happen.
Yeah. Oh, I totally, respect painting history, and, I still look at a lot of painting from, even, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
So, again, it's all kind of filtered through my my brain and my hands. That's what appeared. But the show, it's up until February 15th, and there are about, I believe 11 paintings there, and Yeah, I mean, it was a show that I believe I started working on it from last August. I think that's when I was tapped to do the show. So yeah, about 4 months, maybe even a little bit longer than that, but roughly 4 months worth of work. Nice. Which, I mean, I ideally I would love a little more, time or whatever, but it came together quickly, and I'm grateful for it. And
nothing motivates like a deadline.
Yeah, exactly. I sometimes do need that fire, under my ass.
Yeah, if we have like a show in 5 years.
Yeah, I know. I
might take it slow.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'll start on year 4. Like start. It's like
it's coming up here.
It's like so yeah, maybe the 4-month thing was good. But yeah.
Cool. So, and then you do social media? People can check out. Is that the best way for people to keep up to date on what you're doing?
I mean, I have a website, but these days I feel like people find my website through Instagram. So yeah, it's in Instagram. Yeah, it's Kenichi _Hoshine on Instagram. I mean, it's been amazing. Instagram, it's a marketing tool that I feel like has been productive. Yeah. It might be an understatement, actually. It's been kind of crazy, right? Yeah. And yeah, it's been helpful, and it's been nothing but great for the past few years.
Well, and you seem like a well-adjusted person who's not probably on that thing every 5 minutes of the day.
Well, okay. No, I'm not.
Assumption?
But I try to not take it too seriously, you know, in a sense that like it's not like a strictly marketing tool for me. I still post photos of my dog, and like just posting stories of stupid food that I eat or whatever, and things like that. So I'm still having lots of fun with it, but at the same time, yeah, like I do try. I have like a conscious like decision making thing that I do where I post on like say certain days or certain times, or I kind of space out the posts to kind of even things out, or keep people interested, blah blah blah. So that's always kind of in the back of my mind, but I feel like at times you need to sort of do that these days to stay relevant,
right? Connected
in the art world, because just about every other person on Instagram is an artist, these days. So you kind of have to, stand out in one way or another.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, congrats on the show.
Thank you so much.
And
I appreciate it.
It was great having you over.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to talk.
It was fun. This was great. Thank you so much.
Sound and Vision was recorded, produced, edited, and facilitated by myself, Brian Alfred. If you would like to support this podcast, please visit Patreon, patreon.com/soundandvisionpodcast. And when you make a donation, you can have your name mentioned in a future pod, or even get a hand-drawn thank you. There'll be some merchandise going out. It's really supporters like you that keep Sound and Vision possible. Many thanks to Kenichi. Go see his show at Hollis Taggart. Closes February 15th. Thanks to Evan Marion, who you're hearing on bass playing right now, who did the intro-outro music. Many thanks to Michael Lovett for the intro, Emily Burns for graphic design. And thank you to Golden Artist Colors for their sustained support of this podcast. It's well in advance, but I am giving a talk, an upcoming workshop at the Lower East Side Print Shop. It is going to be Monday, March 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. I'll be talking about talking to artists, making art, communicating through art, lots of stuff related to podcast and my work. You can get advance tickets to that at store.printshop.org. Many thanks for all your support. Stay tuned.